please do your best to engage in virtuous activity and purification and so on during this month.
Lamanoa, Chatsanga, Kori Machoa. What is Dembati, and water between Dembe Catente, Shibangana, and Kawata, and Debata, and Casuda Takancha, Kate Tosum, and Toa. What are Dembati shelter? Yakushu to attend when Jabayina, and it did the Sunday Demba did, and using group of the core madam, but then Chimaro, never shot, never judge, never target something. And then they said, so they give Molon Caritugan and Lapchable, never chable. They are Janju Senatonio to be shed up Simicona. Dembe, Nansu Shimicona, Dembe Trota, and the Demba Yunde, the Shimetona. And what that is Java in a bed, Lapchable, and Nubachibu Gurua. What did I say?
And so this, of course, is so important for us, the great kindness of the Buddha, who during his lifetime, through these actions of body, speech, and mind, has bequeathed these wonderful, wonderful teachings to us, and pointed out in particular, the root cause of this cyclic existence, which is in the nature of suffering, on the one hand, and not leaving it at that, but then pointing out the root cause of that, and therefore how to overcome that by developing the wisdom of selflessness. And that this was unique, really, in all the spiritual traditions that the Buddha pointed this out to us, and pointed out a path that was not only complete and unmistaken, but also delivered in the right order. And all these teachings we should do our very best to become acquainted with and to follow. And we should pray how wonderful it would be if these teachings could remain with us, for a long, long time. May that be the case. I will myself do whatever I can to ensure that that is so. And in so doing, pray, make aspirational prayers to this effect, and to follow the teachings as much as we can with the greatest intensity that we can during this time, to be able to afford of the great blessing and great benefit power of the imprints that are available during this time, and that just in short to try to dedicate ourselves to follow as perfectly as we can all of what has been taught by the Buddha.
Ngarato Kanga, some city Tegu Yore, and a Yapo on the Tegu Yorte, in a thing got to Nomo to Gutwa, and Nomo Papa 200, and a Tanzan Maribola 2 ticketwa, Ranchenzilla 2 ticketwa. Chidachi then I need to Tombakati Mangucha Yorete, Yena Yang, that Koyatawa Tanzan Maribody, Tinabu Tame Tobe Sheriff, standing at Toba Nyachitwa. Jamba the Ninja that Chujimda, Servata, the Sunga Mangudo. In a Marazo, Tunga so deep, and Tanzi Maribari, Tinabo Tameto Besharas, but Lungri Telapane. Lunda repeat it, Takata, that repeat Telapane. Tumseng Telapane, and a dear Casodeta, Casode, Seme repeat Telapane. To the Nyachidua. The Nyachidua, Takanja Tempe, would just a tatik on the Jango. Shantideva in that, that's all one number you think was them by the death. The nigga Shango in Bachana, Jumze Shebetona. Said, I don't put them by Shantideva, Tobalana Meva. Tobalana was a Tobacona, Ticon, Tomashabati medical school one. And what is it? And it Tumbang Shebacona and it Temple jobs to it. And it did Tembala and it Namne Jenna and it did Temple Yuri to Nana. Demon Shebacona and Temple Yuri to Nana. That was John. Jim Pendo, you might get a single Yorba. 아니 그때 나 낭바이 경쟁이 많이 맞잖아. 때문에 나주 심에 돈에. 주바이나 딱만 랑기 제가 딱만은 나 지금 때만 좋아하는 편도 연구를 와. 어떤데 공부 시했잖아. 어떤데 책.
And to emphasize that point, that so we all want this kind of a happy, peaceful life, and that, but we have to understand that we are so overwhelmed often by mental afflictions, and at the very heart of these mental afflictions is this root cause of the ignorance grasping at the true existence of self-entity, and that we have to be, really aware that though there have been many teachers in this world, that the one who is unique in pointing this key issue out is the Buddha, and more especially the one who is unique in being able to point out the antidote to that ignorance. The wisdom of selflessness is uniquely the Buddha. And so when we are kind of, referring to ourselves as Buddhists, we should have this in mind that, that there are wonderful teachings out there from many different traditions on developing love and kindness, compassion, ethical conduct, etc., generosity, and so on. But when it comes to really discerning the root cause of all suffering in cyclic existence and then proposing the antidote to that particular cause, the Buddha is absolutely on his own, is unique in that respect. And so this is where our kind of sense of what is being a Buddhist and the respect for the Buddha should come from. That this is what makes the Buddha extraordinary. And so it's very, very important too to understand that he didn't just happen upon this particular truth, but developed this through scripture and reasoning, particularly the reasoning based on a valid basis, valid perception. And so this is kind of backed up by this reason, which becomes the hallmark of any entry into Buddhism, that one is establishing whatever truths one finds on the basis of valid reasoning, unmistaken reasoning. And so this is why when we pray that the teachings should remain for a long time, remain extant in this world, and that people have access to them and so on, it's because we are aware of the profound benefit that can be brought to those people, to the future generations, by relying on such valid reason to reach these truths.
어다들 공부 시작하는 아니 사가다와티 아니 엔데게 또바 캬바첸티 아니 고충와 뭐 맞고 산게바 아니 저기 냥을 때바 데게 다 간제 저기 다 두제도 고충 두제도 뭐 맞고 산게 그 최대 두제도 아니 냥을 때바 최대나 다 두자로 편법 바시리 쳐들어다 디제도 아니 디게는 지가서다 어떤데다 갖도베 같은 텐시베 거는 어떤 주진 개발했던지 라 또베 원에다 지랍 거기는 이어다 랑게 원에다 지기 디게디 같은 텐시베다 또베 연대 텐시베는 디니 니소 저도 너 빠도 거 좀 그래 봐 아니 랑게 냠네다 사주 친구 좀 그래 봐 안데서들 다와들 분규게 다왔어 수고해 들 봐. 어떻게
And so, therefore, when we are celebrating Sakadawa by more intensive interaction and connection with the Dharma, we should do so based on these reasons. There's the reasoning behind what we're doing, and that the Buddha, in the great manifestations of the life he spent in this world, manifested the coming into this world, being born during this time, of manifesting full and complete enlightenment during this month, and of manifesting going into parinirvana during this month. So all of these, demonstrations from the Buddha, in order to really benefit all sentient beings as much as possible. And so we should be aware that although the blessing of the Buddha is always present for us from our point of view, we should make the connection with that blessing. It's a two-way process, as it were, and therefore that we need to do whatever we can during especially this month in order to avail of that blessing. And that this is it's for kind of no accidental. There's not an accident that this month is referred to as the month of the 100,000. That all of our virtuous actions are multiplied by 100,000 times in this period.
다다 택바 첨배 흉내 택바 첨배 흉거 조다 제와이나 상계 좀 된데 다다 모두다 남주 용다 여도 가서 건자 자가 도지달라 뭐바 줘봐 사이게 바데 수고요 봐 이나 택바 첨배 흉제나 상계 좀 된데 상계사데 도지달라 게두고요 말 상계 와서 녀바도我们 두부급의 신금스럽 찍었다 저 맨날 꾸시요 봐 꾸시는 다 가자데 니 가서데 다 꾸시 나네 아니 저 가서도 추구다 뭐 니구니 니제 아니 되네 수고 롱고도 두고 다 상계도 꾸싱원에 상계원도 다 가자자 가서 추구고를 추구고도 지고로 다 추구도 상계 낭변주면도 제투고요 말이야 다 되네 임바자 아니 셈젤 평바 두베쳐도 추구대 랑된 추구스고요 봐 랑된 다 추바인데 추구자 다 현재 수고스의 현재 생라 변 줘봐라 아니 수고 꾸지가 나마 마데나 변 줘두고요 말이야 근데 이제 아니 상계도 당부께서 롱궁을 상계도 오미 두고고라 롱궁을 상계도 다 롱구 되게 콜라 장세 파파 장장래 장세 파파면도 요 말이야 아니 최대 택바체비 최 바시 수고요 말이야 리제 순갈 펜토두고요 말이야 년도 다 랑게 택바체보 순갈 펜토두고요 말이야 다 근데 이봐 인자 아니 저기 초고 두고 나봤대네. 안 두자 리전 순갈라. 편도에서도 아니 초고 두고 나봤다. 상계 좀 되도 초고 두고 숨에들. 초고 두고 나봤더니 마페. 다디 마페 녀라. 이거 롱고 뭐봐 봐 상계는 아니 엔겨 뭐버게 제바데 간델 쇼네. 하이보 담바 또가베 나봤대네 쇼. 되네다 두주 바오는 다 로니동 두자 단 로니동 두자 치베 다 신사와 다 디게스 도서 어디 갑들라 다 뒤주들라 다 뒤주 뒤딱다 다 시방갈 쓰네 다 뒤된데지 아니 용 된데지 내 된데지 릭 된데지 와 쓰네 다 뒤주 딱다질 바원데 아니 다 루빈들 구통하러 봐 구통 전다 되네 아니 저가서 다 가자 아니 가서 내 당보 출라 아니 소래쳐도 아니 디발 가서도 다 간제 제가 중립이 나봤더네 아니 되네 아니 저 가서도 다 가서 년중 개별 추제네 아니 시바다 나와서 년중 개별 추제 아니 되네 아니 게시 샤네 아니 랍도 중에 나봤대 아니 되네 로주 가와체 발로서 왔다는 거 봐서 상기를 추대 아니 되네 신에다 누가 체신이거든 아니 최고 당 보고 와르나스 와다 가서는 가랑 줄라 내 당보와 지금 땅 알아서 된대질 팬토에 채도 아니 나바데지 저거 두고 나바데는 편 얘네 상계도 롱궁을 상계월 어디를 아니 롱부랑 제바이나 되게 이제 순간에 팬토고 매바 인사 아니 저거 두고 나바데네 그거 다다다 얘를 경고밖에 저 간데를 쇼 간데나다 뒤지면도 뭐 뒤잡들라 제주 잡아 공부샤 제주 잡아가 다 사제 나바데 편으로 와 얘네 상계사 이게 저다 이게 뒤지 상계 좀 되대 때봐 지대는 매바차 아니 제주 잡아보고 때봐 다래가 뒤로 봐원데 이제 제주 잡아고 마피한 거 시방하는 마피한 거로 어디는 되네 나랑도 채도 펴봤다 나랑도 채도 상계에 남았대 말이야 아 되게 이번에 아니 나라서 되게 연대 되게 제시 배터도 제가 있나 아니 지금 저 납치부 사이 정도도 봐 정도도 봐
So in the Mahayana tradition, and that there's a kind of a different understanding of the different activities and events in the Buddha's life. That conventionally speaking, we have the birth of the Buddha in Bodh Gaya, and the birth of the Buddha, and then kind of this attaining enlightenment and going through the other different deeds of the Buddha. But from the point of view of the Mahayana tradition, These were just merely kind of manifestations from the Buddha, show of the Buddha, that the Buddha was already enlightened prior to being born in this world, and was living in the higher realms in Ganden, and that.
Mare sanke sanke wami tubukola wami la kalagde sanke wami la jabr wami la
Akanishta
wami la longu sanke bro
Akanishta, and if we look into the theory of the four bodies of the Buddha, there were two of the wisdom bodies, the nature truth body and the wisdom truth bodies. They are traditionally said to be bodies that fulfilled his own purpose. And then you have the form bodies of the complete enjoyment body and the emanation body, and these were for the purpose of others. And so they kind of performed, different deeds. They had different jobs to do, as it were. And in relation to the enjoyment body, the complete enjoyment body, the complete enjoyment body is restricted to again in the higher, I'd say, in the enlightened realms of teaching only higher level bodhisattvas, and teaching only the Mahayana Dharma. And so therefore, even let alone ordinary beings, but also those on the here and solitary realizer paths also are excluded from those teachings because they don't qualify to be there. And so that the emanation body is then the one that is kind of goes through this process of being born into this world and to be able to teach to all beings. And the Buddha Shakyamuni was an emanation body, in fact, a supreme emanation body. And so until that time, he was in the pure realm of Ganden, and then it was like already enlightened at that point, as it were, on the throne in Ganden. And it's only when the time arrived, some 2006 years ago, when a certain mother, father, and a certain status and so on to be born into, all these conditions had come together, then that time was right for the Buddha to become, to emanate, to be the emanation body of that time, of that era. And so came down and taught extensively to all beings. And that from kind of a beginner's point of view, the kind of life story of the Buddha is very clear, very understandable, some way of allowing us to get into the kind of a mindset that the Buddha had, and then going through this process of being born into a kind of a royal or chieftain status, of being protected from the outside world, and finally being able to go outside the palace walls and so on to see somebody who was sick, who was old, who was dead, and on the basis of that develop a renunciation to escape from that life of luxury and start on apparently start on the path to enlightenment, and then to go to Varanasi, and nearby there, first of all turn the wheel of Dharma for the first time with the teaching of the four Arya truths, and this is a way for us to kind of get into, as it were, the teachings, the life of the Buddha. But from the Mahayana point of view, the Buddha is already enlightened prior to coming to this world, and so he leaves with then in that Buddha realm, Ganden, who's kind of replaced the Buddha on that throne, because Maitreya is replacing the Buddha on that throne, since he is going to be the fifth Buddha in this fortunate eon, the Shakyamuni Buddha being the fourth. And so this is how we understand it from the Mahayana point of view. Therefore, I'd like to really understand this as well, to have this in mind, to commit ourselves to these teachings, and to commit with more intensity during this time.
산제베 넘버 10전 아니 가라서 다 출구 부부디게 송을 왔다 디게 왔다 같은 제시베 거는
And so it's kind of more intensively understood that it is therefore exclusively for us, for the purpose of benefiting all of us, all sentient beings, that the Buddha, even though already enlightened, even though didn't need to, of course, dedicated himself like that to bring forward this arrive in the aspect of a human being and to show the aspect of giving teaching and so on. This is all purely, solely, exclusively for our benefit. So when we realize that too, you know, it's kind of like that sense of absolute appreciation for the Buddha should be heightened as well. So of course, yes, you were aware of all this. I'm just saying this in order to kind of like jog your memories, really.
Yeah, oh, the Kwanda, that is the Sanje Cheda, that's the time to Totalana Majaba Sanje, Kumar and Boja Chineja, Tobacha, Ticho, and Janjus and Lavjan, Twitch, and not Lawa, Shingle, Shimbal, Togo, Tola, Tojisho, Manoa, Chiboto, comes with Baba the Dakanja. Comes with Baba the Dakaja, Junjo Shunten, and that took Geshe to be what is Kumashe.
So we begin by setting our motivation to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment itself by practicing perfecting, in fact, all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To do this, we must, of course, know what these are, have an understanding of them in order to practice. And we gain this by relying on an unmistaken source of these practices. And it is for this reason that we are here this morning to listen to a teaching from the great text, the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
Yes, I know. To Kula Chu, woman, to just saw what did it also show you as a combat. And it made you want to go only as a part of the Shiran Yeshiba, all other Chaba Chanta, Yeshiba to get and it to Basanja to Bashaja to number Chant and a team, only uncle, and Chilo Machana, we hear what came with the water is combat.
And then we visualize in the space in front of us our own root guru in the aspect of Buddha Shakyamuni, the one who is greatly compassionate and skilled in means. He is seated on a throne in the Vajra posture with two hands, one hand in the earth-touching mudra and the other in the mudra of meditative equipoise, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. He is in the nature, the body is in the nature of pure, clear light, and the body is also marked by the syllables Om, Hom. From the Hong at the heart, light rays emanate, inviting all of the wisdom beings and empowering deities from their natural abodes. The the wisdom being dissolve into the main figure, and the empowering deities confer empowerment, some of which nectar overflows at the crown and transforms into the figure of Akshobhya.
랑게 타고도 진집에 막게 심제 탐제 마상와 매버유 섬제 심제다 탐제장 아니 저주스 동네 나시바 가인 발라 남바 민듯이 남주 유게 아니 되나 세트벨 라마 투베 오부티 안다 두수사자 탐제가 직두지 뭐디 아니 들라 아니 지가 다외다 와 이치게 때와 모두 그때 발라서 그때 유에되게 아니 라니를 차샤바이네 다 심제라 미베게 닌제 심제라 미베 닌제 Rwata, Teta, and Tungi Natural Samatane, Tungele Missouri Ninja, and Dewata do the Chamba, and then they Dewata Tungatamja, Dewatamja, Teba Chig, that Niechi is in a Haxam. Did the Chiga to the Simja Tamja and a Simja Chigia, Dewatamja, the Tungatamja, the Chematata, touch of one, touch of that, the solution, and the Simja Tuja, Lala Umbas of Sanjava. On the corner, call you by Yanata. 아니 지금 가서 다 심지어 감다 매번 발언이 뭐 치다와서도 괜히 심지어 배면을 좀 있고 되는지 거기 고마워도 더 맞지 섭사하게 왔다 공부하시.
And so we look on all sentient beings all around us, all kind other sentient beings all around us with the mind of compassion. We see that they, although denizens of all of the different realms of existence and suffering, the different sufferings relative to those realms are cognizing all that with the human intelligence. And thereby they're looking also like ourselves at the figure in space in front, who is the embodiment of all Buddhas, and with the mind of a pure faith, of manifest faith, and the faith of conviction. And that so we are viewing all sentient beings with this mind of compassion, thinking how wonderful it would be if they were free from suffering and its causes, and looking also with the mind of love. We're seeing how wonderful it would be if they all had happiness and the causes of happiness. May they have that. I will pray that this may be so. I will do more than that. I will see that this is so, developing this special intention, this exalted intention, to really dedicate ourselves to that purpose. But then realizing that we can't even do this for one sentient being. And when we look around to see what sort of example we should follow, we see that it is only that which is embodied by an enlightened being, the Buddha himself, that who has the capacity to really see the different karmas of all sentient beings, to understand their personalities and dispositions, to act timely in a timely manner, and so on. All the necessary conditions to be able to purely and truly benefit all sentient beings. Therefore, we rededicate ourselves to attaining that same state for that specific purpose, that we will be in the best position to benefit all sentient beings. And that we want to be able to do that perfectly, accurately, effortlessly, and spontaneously, just like an enlightened being.
야투한테 단지 말이 발라 투고 녀몽도 디야 아니 단지 말이 발라 투도 디냐보다 담에 더 베셔라 다 담에 더 베셔라 땡게도 또 반냐거든 다 뒤에서 그런 것도 지금 다기 주변에서 가서 잠바다 니제도 재와다 되게 연대 주겠다 아니 디게 좀 보긴 받다 아니 초중도 개좀 보긴 받 수고 열대 얘네 다도 두바지 매나 내 두고도 삼삼전 시대들라 다도 두바지 샤는 패고도 다디도 아니 코에 싸워서 구조 잡고 요 말 내가 그 디지털에 개와 상벌리에 제도 그때 코안에 타와져 쏟고 요 말 가서 코에 싸운 거 맞습니다 아니 디니보 담에 또베 셔라 마고나 코에 싸워를 내 두고 말 봐. 다디 디 내다 셔 오 다도 맞다 문에 전에 땅가라도 문에 전에 가서다 미치와 소리치 와다 로아디 미치와 소리치 거다 자기도 what did that 되게 아니 지금 가서다 지금 다 내가 지금 차대도 what 다음에 또 배치라 못 쳐도 디 자와 코에 다지 말에 코에 자와 디 뭐 다음에 또 배치라 디야 땜배 순간에서 말다 소수 좀전 삼었다네 아니 오호 디레샤 못 쳐도 토네 what did 땜배 가서 신은 땜발다 이제 다 대바다 몇 번 해서 거기도 what did
And so again, as I just pointed out, the extraordinary and exclusive kind of kindness of the Buddha was in pointing out the theory of selflessness, and that to understand that behind all of everything else, there's this kind of root of cyclic existence, the very root of suffering itself, and that even all of the mental afflictions that we do battle with, they all go back to that same root of the ignorance of grasping at the self-entity. And he pointing out that there is this antidote of selflessness was an extraordinary kindness in itself, and that as beautiful and as powerful and as beneficial as the teachings on love and compassion and ethics and so on, all of them essential. But as long as we don't do anything to contradict this establishment of a self-entity, or this delusion that we have some sense of an inherent existence, then we are doing nothing to, as it were, shake up the whole notion of cyclic existence itself. We will continually revolve in the same old way in cyclic existence. And so here, these teachings, are saying that if we don't do anything to uproot this mistaken notion of a self-entity, that we will have no liberation from cyclic existence. We will never overcome. We never reach liberation from cyclic existence. We will never get out of this kind of nexus of suffering. And so it's, in a way, the Buddha has really opened our eyes. He really has given us sight to be able to see this. And not only it's not like just a mere pronouncement, but it's saying that if we look into it ourselves, if we apply the reasoning, we will see for ourselves, we will recognize for ourselves that this is indeed the case, that there is a root cause of cyclic existence, that is the ignorance of grasping at the true existence of self and phenomena, and that there is an antidote that the Buddha proposed of developing this wisdom of selflessness to cut through this, and that the more we look into it with reason, the more we will naturally cultivate this faith, all the different elements of faith, pure faith, faith of conviction, and faith of manifest faith in the Buddha and in the Buddha's teachings.
딜레테네 다 그래서 라왕 또 마주바 이바이나 다 줍사데 때네 중화면도미도 때네 중화면도메 아니 최담제 때네 중화 임바디 야부 중화 저도 아니 데 뭐트에 중고도 딜레테네 아니 소소 레스버 마사바나 냐송 생게 베냐와 생다 이다서 뭐도 단다 뭐서 통고 요마도 근데 유효조사를 고 때네 중화인도 아니 레냐바 톱쳐 보시고 사나 때네 중화사서 다가네제 잡아다 닝제다 다가네제 데네 소발라소베 냠네 톱쳐보 다가네제 그 가서데 자주가 셈라서 검네 아니 제조 파제도 냠네 제파이나 안디야 아니 베 케바네 케베바도 제바이나 아니 사주 람가 저네 산제 고마스도 예 초사데 삼사지 아니 고 리벨람네 댄스 밥도고도 아니 산제 생데 예 초사데스 텔 밥도고도 고 때네 중앙인바에서 아니 고 교계 디렉터도 주다 걔네가 상어도 아니 저부터는 용 조사를 삼삼지 아니 뭐 줘야지보다 다른 것은 뭐도 줘 말때 뭐 줘야지보다 다 팀에 맞아 라와도 줘봐이나 고다 리벨람네 줘봐이나 리벨이 저다 심배터나 삼았다나 아니 라와도 줘고 구조자에 매버려 그냥 어저 탐해와나 탐해와라한테 대야면도 줘태 매 왔다 뒤지도 고 리벨람네 줘도 아니 고 아니 Riba Yangda Lamne Chidu, and what more trade you, dear combat tomato pay you, or combat tomato pay that Jibata, Sobata, Sundays, the combat tomato pay what the Sanjerwa. Or that Sanjes get the winner, you chose it. Because around the Madu, but I got 10 join into, could you get to get someone to just on a minever, Namshina, Chatukurwa, some such, and what to do. At the rest of the time, when I done it better, regret Lamne tell about it, and she would check it out, say what Chatuich. Migi sharing the next success of the product and water at the lot to it. You would do.
So this very fact of not being self-powered means that we can't be an independent entity. That infers that therefore we must arise in dependence. And so this is such a profound understanding, this notion that on the one hand, we lack a particular way of existing independently or objectively, that in itself is telling us that we do exist in a dependent mode, in the basis of causes and conditions, etc. And so this truth in itself, from a beginner's point of view, should give us also a more faith in all of the teachings presented by the Buddha. For example, in the hell realms, the different lower realms and the suffering therein, that these are all real. These are all kind of true manifestations, that they are a logical consequence and so on. And that likewise, loving kindness, compassion, patience, and so on, the development of the mind of enlightenment, the results of perfecting all the 6 perfections, etc., etc., that this also is true, that there is a logical and reasonable cause and effect relationship that allows us to proceed along, for example, the 10 grounds and the 5 paths to enlightenment itself. In other words, that on the basis of that particular truth, that we can affirm more solidly and gain more conviction, more ascertainment in all of the teachings of the Buddha. And that this is something that is important in its own right, that we see that the Buddha is presenting a path of reasoning, and that here that which is based on the law of the dependent origination, the law of cause and effect, of everything arising on the basis of causes and conditions, and that it can't be an independent. Nothing can be independent. The more we affirm this for ourselves, the more faith and conviction we can have in all the teachings of the Buddha, and subsequently our ability to really commit to the teachings will become easier and easier for us.
Langwaje Kushimis, Dina Shiji, and shed the Watilla, Sangi Jum de Sun de Watilla, and Takchi, Jevachis, Langwaje Kushims, Nala Guay, Jum Sagi Kelem Maris. What the Casorta, Ribella Metelpa with the Sebu Shower. Several what is it?
And this points to the oft quoted declaration of the Buddha himself, like when talking to our monks and masters. Please listen to this. That when you go to buy gold, you don't just accept it straight away. You need to rub it, or cut it, or burn it to ensure that you're getting a purity of gold. In the same way, you must treat what I say. In other words, you must treat my teachings. They must be put to analysis, to the process of investigation, and that you don't just accept what I say out of respect for me or the idea that I'm the Buddha and so on, and that this is not good enough, that you are obliged to analyze, and only from that on that basis, then on that reasonable basis, can you gain true conviction in what has been taught.
What did what I did to Chomu and Salta, what did something so Sandy get them by the Java, them by the Legata, Jenny, the Legia, and the Legion Yamaga, the would go some wish you but it, sort to it, sort to it, and it to make a tent to it. And the Dilan and social music, don't that by rich. When I didn't get with the Dota, didn't get with the Dota, Dilet, the sugar, sending him a dead Dota. What are the legend? Takaja, you to a what did the church? What the duck gets you doesn't get the Saga Tower captain, that you and Yame, sausage and choose a door. To talk Jetu, that better Jebura, how do the Saga Tower and those better Jetuana. Yabuyoro, what did you do? Kuba Sushi, what said?
And so from many reasons, then from the point of view of many reasons, we need to kind of continuously affirm the Buddha's teachings, from gaining that sense of conviction and ascertainment in the Buddha's teachings, then we can more easily become a good person. We can more easily make this life more meaningful. And so this is the main reason why I'm emphasizing this point. And it's not just, of course, during Sakadawa at this special time, but constantly we should turn our minds to Dharma as much as we possibly can, but especially at this time, because we can gain so much from that. So it's very, very important that we rededicate ourselves in this time. Sokran Chukyu Rechik the Sumba. Get you song, eh? Say that the Gashintu Juba.
What is that? Nimbutopshikon was Nimbutopshikon, Nimbutopshikon, Nabasunjibeto, and it think it Nibukudu Jibeto, Nabala of a top start top sea. So Nabasunjibeto, the Casato Chibata, and the think it will come there. So they do what did the Gentaka, so with Nebaja and Ya Casata Sajeta, and Rada Sajeta, to judge Sebe could do them, and the Tavaja Sajeta judges could do. Rata Sajeta Kidula could do la Takaja, that Chicasode. That Shatum Jesus, what I Shatum Chata, Kimba Suda, what other than Never Sasos, Senenda, what did the and Casodeta. Did I jump to a good Shatum Chechugro, what did the General Suma jumps of Sonia, that I catch to what I jumps of Sonia, jumps of Sonia, go to what and that Tambo jump the Milua Chora, jump Milua chick, and it jump Milua Dilatene, any tea, and it jumps of Sonia, any tea, Casataka, Lam Tembatilla, and a catch to reach. Catch to reach, what a catch to reach. So my jumps of Sonia, Takajo Resana. And Kashituba Nestawala, Munje Keji, Kali, the Danijiba Chedona, Kyola Jozo Chela, Chibanyo said to source.
And so we've been looking at this section of the text of chapter 2, the disclosure of negativity, the process of applying the four opponent powers in purifying those said negativities, the power of regret, power of the basis, the power of always applying the antidotes, the power of refraining from misdeed in the future. We had arrived at this point of the power of the basis, and discovered that we accumulate negativity in relation to Buddhas and sentient beings. And so we are going for refuge, generating the mind of enlightenment in order to counter those negativities. And so here, in purifying here, we're arriving at this third subheading where it says, having gone for refuge, you then how to then perfectly follow the teachings. And so he is saying that when our refuge is undeceptive and really true, it is on the basis of that then that we can really dedicate ourselves or really as we jump into a perfect practice of the teachings. And verse number 53 speaks about this. And so it's saying, previously I transgressed your advice, but now upon seeing this great fear, I go to you for refuge. By doing so, may this fear be swiftly cleared away.
소소가 잡서 조사다 당부대 잡 밀루와지 잡다가 추가 배워지 예디 개치보래 다들 이마인자 당 저거 대대게 다 근데 저거 산제 최기도 다들에다 저거 산제 그래다 거대가 됐다 간제 저거 밀루와 임바티 밀루와 임바도 워터네 아니 딜레 아니 잡서초 아니 잡서초네 아니 잡서초 거바데 가르스나 아니 같이 주베도와 되다 투바치 예티 디가드 투바치에 어디데 다들 이제 다들 저 가셔 주면서 다 뭐는 다단다 자와도 뭐지 키지 칼레데 다 찾아 쳐져 직원들 있어서 다들 다지에서다 뭐체 다 왔다 뭐체 다다네 너무 다다네 뭐라다 니마들이는 뭐라다 뭐체 키지 칼레데네 아니 디바치시 다 같이 디바치시 안 다네 내리 지와 치고 통내서 다들 디과 사사바이나 아니 디 제부 다지 밀루아제를 용디로 와 얘다 지과 치고 통내서 켈라 카자미마다 카자마이 바제 잡수 치라나 당 오늘 켈라디 잡 밀루아시 켈라가 때문에 시 지금 마제바이나 아니 정도 소소라라는 도스 어떤 데에서 과사다다 카자미마 잡수 치라기서 아니 코아치다 제다 아니 년주 집과 아니 뉴도 세도 소다 코아 집과 지다 저와 년주 집과 뉴도 세도 소스 샤보 워츠
So yes, when we are going for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and really recognizing, why we are going for refuge, having taken that decision to kind of trust in the triple gem, it is kind of like we are genuine in what we're doing, we're undeceptive in what we're doing, and what follows, or what ought to follow from that, is then that we are really dedicated to really entering into the practices that are kind of like that are the consequence of that refuge, and entering into them as perfectly as we possibly can. And so here, this the verses is in recognition of previously, even having understood and kind of been introduced to those teachings, I contravened your teachings, talking to the Buddha directly. I acted contrary to them, engaged in negativity. But now I see the results of such negativity, and the fear of the lower realms and so on. I see very clearly that great fear is very obvious to me, and so therefore from here on in, I more genuine, go for refuge, not just paying lip service anymore, but I am this time really motivated. I'm motivated by that fear to genuinely go for refuge. And so please, I beg that I be quickly freed, released, freed from the fear of the suffering of cyclic existence in general, and in particular the lower realms.
어디래 답변아 다당가서 변아 둘에 도와 세답돼 아니 두가고 세답네 두가고 꿀레 두세랑가 근데 손대체는 꿀레 두세랑가 왜세다 잡아 주면 토마나만 되거든 진짜 제바도 닦아져 지금 되게 되바 류가 있어서 근데 집안에 봐 자식 따봐 총총서서 어디는 공부시에 요구를 와다 어디는 공부시에를 봐 자식 따봐 쳐서 삼사 어디든 전 我的切切是吧？那当然是那么这个本来可是你妈的把水吧，就我这把土高子，就我们了，没把钱，没把我们的那个是把都没把车的，然后就了我们要把这让他那么事情，然后我们就是搞把都没把，我们把都没把车的，然后就我们了听的，旅馆的是把这个哪里对就是什么这这边阿拉恐怕想，阿拉就是把都没把车呢，呀。这个说的让你这边让到马克思的这边阿拉天，俺可能上边打，最他妈吃中俺家了说菜单成了汤了，对吧？这个那你对着呀，一个人那些那在老板说这个那你对就是我的这，呀这边突然一个红包都没有做的，我的是，呀，就我这么突然红送过来个这做的，让到俺家马克思，就我这么突然红马天，对就我这么突然红包都没有做的。팀에 룽아에서 투모도 사베 디바디가 봐. 바차는 제가 매번 차소서. 어디는 저 디바다다제 요구로 어디는
And so, at this point here, you can insert a descending nectar light meditation, quite simply visualizing again the figure of the Buddha in front, and that light rays emanating from the home, and that here we use the nectar light to purify. For example, white light coming from the at the crown, entering into ourselves and all sentient beings all around us, purifying all the negativities of body, like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and that they are completely purified, and followed by the red light coming from the at the throat, purifying, again entering into our crown and all sentient beings, purifying all negativities associated with speech, being lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, idle gossip, etc. And then the blue light from the home at the heart, entering into us and all sentient beings, purifying all negativities associated with the mind, with mental attitudes such as covetousness and malicious intent and wrong view. And then following that, we can visualize that all of the nectar lights are flowing together, so that they're kind of dealing with any kind of residue or imprints of all these negativities as they flow through us and all other sentient beings, and we are completely purified.
我这个本来讲讲我当时讲说这个底下的对了错性赛道呢，当错性给他赛道了，当我就突然我赛道我突然我这个那么这边错性的，当这个那么这个错性的，当感觉错性给他赛道吧以内。다 최저다 왔다를 전 디바다다 제다 야라도 메데다 저 아니 디바다다 제다 가자 초신 세다는 디바다다 제 왔다를 고마시 다 지단 지소르지라 왔다 사모어드 스타트 왔잖아 아니면 지금 뭐시다 되마도 와이나 다 지나유 뭐제 지제 갈래데 다네 지바 쳐잖아 켈라이도 쳐라 지바뉴도 세도 소어드는 지는 지다가라 되네 다가라 되지 뒤도다 사모탄자 뒤집어잖아 되게 도와 초가 먹고 싶다 되시네 되게 되마시는 내가 뭐 개치지 된다다 딱다 셔바체 아니 고소도가 연대 되게 되마체 아니 네가 네가 여바데 아니 로아다 배는 거저 잠들라 니 여바 잠들고 균이 여바 차고 봐 년송에도 다 규된데 사바는 년송을 깨바나 동에 봐도 매바 이거데 년 들리 집에 집아치체 근데 잡서 조세 유대다라 아니 잡투베 네바 여바지 이 집에 이제 직제 다 니니 비다고 여와이나 아니 잠도 비다고 요구로 와 비다고 요구로 와
So we can really center around this verse as being something that will be a springboard to our being able to engage in really effective practice, as has been just described. Whether we're using the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha alone that we are visualizing, or indeed an entire merit field, or the merit field as associated with the Guru Puja practice or the Nam Rim, and here we can supplement, the kind of preliminary here of visualizing the merit field in that way, offering mandala and the 7-limb practice, and then entering into the process of purification in that way, of really most importantly, centering on the meaning. What is the meaning of what we are doing, and try to stay focused on that, recalling, for example, the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, how potent and how important it is, looking into the different causes of refuge, for example, the main one being the fear of any rebirth in the lower realms, and a genuine cautionary fear of being reborn there. And secondly, that which is connected with that, then the second cause of having faith and trust that the practice towards the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha can really protect us from that fear. And thereby, we're kind of really crystallizing our notion of refuge here. And the more we purify that the meaning in refuge, the more pure our going for refuge will be, and more effective our subsequent practice will be in employing, like we just did, the descending nectar light meditation.
칼레 대바 칼레 개바데 랑 못초고다 먼저 당가게 가서 기부 담바 속에 나라졸라 딱 지가서데 가서다 가서 람때바 디게티 안가서 딜 딱딱 조마도 인자 다다보다 하버와 하버바 다다보다 하버와다 그러와 다다보다 하버네 다디 칼레 대바서 차대어로다 안 그러와 그러다 칼레 대네 아니 하버래 아니 다 딜레 대네 다 모두는 딜레 하에게 먼저 디바치보자 디바 모두는 사대게 열와 안 딜레 두가 녀솔에게 규망고 사대게 열와 아니 디게 사바다랑 못처럼 다른 거죠 디바 사그르도 사그르 아들 디바 요그르서 라나 초아시라면서 쉬고지고 무수바데 요하면도 당문에 다네 미수바 저나 미수바 중앙 임바이나 그 초아 민자가 지어봐 그봐 배나 차샤바이나 저기 지단 사제 내는 그 풍부디 동해거랑 셰레데 얘네야 다 헛칼라 저기 가서 나자 집과 정보 중앙인바다 야나 지 답변나 저 배나 동원 권다를 선이 잡을 야나 dunta dina la kanghe shibje che ba ta choba chena ane soso dong namju da ngamja da ane keje shede chiga dang nga duate gu duate da kaso ngamja de yobara dang zola da de ngamja me de samge da ngeba ni yomarwa de sang ngeba de choashta me do da ingne choayu ge je 어제 갈레데 디바치모 사바도 소소 오늘 못잡아 안데는 치원이야 남친님의 치외자 충분한 마페바 다데네 소아 가서 녀소를 깨게 막다 줘가지고 못잡아 이나다 샘고 쉬우시 태기를 봐 다들 먼저 쉬와쉬와 좋았어요 말이야 안데네 임바이자 다 되게 딱딱하게 녀바니는 못잡아 지겠지 저는 아니 데데스 돈에 아니 잡수 돈에 누가 자기 말에 식 용단 자기 말에 띵내 그만 두에 준 거는 아니 다들 직관 유도 세도 선대 제반에 콜 누가 신다면 준 거는 와 누가 신다면 어쩌다다 쉬고서 좋아요 말이야 뒤에도 아니 뭐저 냠내데 삐딱 보면 대도 뭐저 개반이요 말아 디모도 다 되지 맞았들 하나 딱 녀석을 기와 다 취사샷을 저 시부지 예반예반다 아니 저 가서도 자와 녀션을 쇼트에다 기르벨 레로트보다 되도 영상 메가서를 찾으러 가서 어디 예반예반다 데려다 좋아 답변은 어저 저기 소소 헛칼 좋아변은 어저 뭐다 샤다 그래서 너네 디발 칸설기 고문 얘기가 숨자서 판자서 남자 남주 교리 용도도 남자 쇼적도 and was a motor parking than a non shana and the penalty tagidwa. To the women go to hot culture to below the London Namju Julieta to longer the Tade Shide in a hot Shide member Chagidwa. Because all that did move to Togo never did the Tidwata. That did to me, what was a fast Marva. Shanty the movie did the Tagaswata to get the Samatanata, she went in Yeva Namchin in Yeme. 치외서 치마도 마베래 아니 소소 개와지 좀 맞아 대야 디바 먹고 싸우다 미가 줬다 뺏사서 삼서 소화시다 민자지 연구해야 돼 이는 어제 개와지 두고도 가서 어제 레다 정보시다 이제 대자 매겨 소리 차왔다 간자 문에 전에 지금 다 가서다 샘디는 예바시 두고도 다디 똑같이 개 맞도 다르와 뒤 똑같이 개 투바 이나 아니 아까 저저 레든 아니 가서라다 디 조금 샤도 맞아는 지금도 써서 아니 지 가서데 다 되게 가서도 샤도 지에다 되게 돼 아니 샤다미다 누가 치고 죽으러 와 그래
So, we will have to constantly really question the kind of conviction we have in the teachings themselves, based on our own experience, that we have still got the teachings of the Buddha with us. We have the holy beings who have exemplified those teachings, they showed the path and so on. And that at the same time, we seem to still kind of accumulate negativities so easily. And that even though we're sort of like so kind of aware of the consequences that we are creating causes, for example, to be born in the lower realms, but it doesn't seem to shake us up enough. We're not getting the kind of feeling out of the knowledge that we're accumulating that will make a true difference to our lives, to our practice. And so here we need to be able to reflect on the sufferings, for example, in the lower realms, such that it really terrifies us. We really can see that it would be unbearable to actually be trapped in that reality, to be born into that reality. And it kind of like, we have sense of, the misfortunes that befall us in this life because of having these contaminated aggregates, body and mind, how sickness can befall us, disease, and so on, and that we have an obvious kind of a genuine fear of having ill health and so on, because it's already manifest for us. It's very obvious to us, but we don't share that same sense of manifest and real fear when it comes to our negativities, the negativities that we have on our mind stream. And so we need to have some way find a way of accessing a real deep sense of anxiety, of a kind of an existential angst with regard to the negativities that we still have on our mind stream. Really big negativities, and to kind of know that we have to do something about them. It's just we can't be so complacent as to go on as per normal and not really address this issue. That death is definite, that the time of death is indefinite, and that only our proper pure practice will be of any benefit to us at that time. And so, that we have to gain a certainty that the lower realms are real, that the possibility of being born there is real, and that sort of terror, that sense of hopelessness and despair at the very possibility of being born there should be very upfront, and really you should feel that, something that really shakes us up. And we have to gain that sense of conviction, and out of that conviction comes really heartfelt practice, that the prayers that we thereafter offer, the practice that we do, the supplications and so on to the masters, to the Buddhas, have real conviction, real power to them. And so this is something that we have to be able to do, that we have to find that conviction that the lower realms are for real, and that like when we're driving, and that we have a near accident, or kind of like somebody is kind of like cutting us off and so on. We have this immediate reaction, that sense of fear, of the fear of impending disaster or death. It comes to us, and that's we need to realize that at a more fundamental level, a level that is kind of saying that our negativities are there on the mind stream, and we must enter into confession and purification practice based on these four opponent powers with these negativities. It's just no way it can be any longer be complacent and leave them as is, that we are just playing around with our future if we're not doing something now. And so the third of the four opponent powers is the power of always applying the antidotes. And here, this is kind of covered in two main headings. That the reason why it is correct to really strive to purify negativities, and secondly, why it is right to quickly engage in that effort.
장고바 대바 오자 당보들로 숨자 내기 배 장고바 때마들라 배도 거바 저 배도 거바도 두 숨제 내 님이 치신 디 조배 매 거바 대나서 매버 초 되게 숨다 주리바 오자 숨제.
And so the first of these, the reasoning why it is right to strive to purify negativities, it has two subheadings. First of all, why is kind of we should purify negatives quickly is demonstrated by the example of illness, and secondly, demonstrating why it is necessary to purify using the example of a cliff. And the first of these, the why it is necessary to purify quickly using the example of illness, again has three verses that will deal with this. First of all, the extracting the meaning from the example. Secondly, that the looking at the great negativity of the three poisonous attitudes, and that the medicine to overcome that being rare. And thirdly, and then how it's right to really engage in the best medicine being in adopting the teachings of the Buddha.
당분에 자와려서 타면 내기 지나야 멤버 가시 잡거나 되자라서 예자예 아니 가서 내게 딱딱 매지고요.
And so looking at the first of these subheadings then, as I'm extracting the meaning from the example, is verse number 54. If I need to comply with a doctor's advice when frightened by a common illness, then how much more so when perpetually diseased by the manifold negativities of desire and so forth.
다 견체제는 다 나사도 라고요. 얘라 소베 타메베 내게 찍나 다 말아줘 지금 말아줘 내 나서서 지대 용다기 어떤 타메 내게 찍바이나 찍나 아니 다들 지금 내딜에 아니 지금 다다 좀 맞잖아 시도 그랬어는 아니 다 집어 용구로 와 대조도 아니 매바 개바제때 아니 매배 나시도 매배가 납작거렸잖아 매 사다다 세 사다라 되게 매배 나는시 매바 개바 냠유제 디거스 제시 잡아지 지구도 자고고요나 다디 된대게 내 용사가 자 내디게 동에 탐제가 자와다 되자 세상 컨트롤라 써봐 도순게 정례디 정례 제부 네바 자타도메다 중고데 네바 자타도메 중고 다 가져 코아나 동네 탐제가 중고자다 중고도 주베 아니 그 내게 그래서 내게 따도 따바텔라 다 내데 다른 다른 것도 탐에 내 다른 것도 미지치 계절 왔다데 좀 미지치다 두두 통도나 계절 왔다데 많이 받잖아 다 된대게 내다 도순게 내데 대자 단지 머리 벽고는 라면 내데 내게 따도 따바테 세외 아마 최지매 때 최지매 디 니뭐 아니 최게 매지 된거 같아 매지고 다 그래서 최지매 때봐 된거 요 봤다 시험거서 매지고 시험하고
And so here it's pointing or contrasting between ordinary illness and disease and so on, and the illness caused through our mental afflictions. So it's pointing out here, if you look at traditionally, these imbalances in our winds, our bile, and our phlegm give rise to ordinary illnesses, and that how much fear that can anxiety that can generate. And that, if we're told that there's a danger of our dying because of these illnesses, we're certainly going to listen to the doctor's advice, take the prescribed medicine, follow the advice on diet, etc., whatever it takes to recover. And then how much more so, it's saying here, should we rely on the ultimate medicine, the medicine of the Dharma, to eradicate the kind of the perpetual disease and the source of so many faults, hundreds of faults caused by the chronic illness of the three poisonous minds, like desire, anger, and so on. So it's kind of contrasting here that we really have to gain the right emphasis in what we're doing.
So that 저기 맞아 다다데 남주기 직대 요다가 내 나자 되게다 지금 내 나자 근데스네 루이티라 때네 요것도 가서 루이티라 때네 아니 근데 삭제가 루이티 되지 유차도 아니 딜라 때네다 내 나자 나서와지 용되게도 와 그래서 그 앞에나 다는 거죠 COVID-19 시대 직받치네 아니 록다운 전에 딱 가자 출로 저번에 나서 그거서 가서 뭐 루이디여서 삭제가 루이디여서 뒤쳐 버려. 먼저 루이디 상매가 루이나 가야 교체도 말이야. 삭제가 루이잖아. 또 삭제가 루이인데 레차도 아니 그 지금 삽삽마잖아. 근데 이내 아니 저 가서도 다 같이 저기 내고도 아니 루이들의 펭귄데 아니 그 처를 뭐지 펭귄데 내게 줄을 차기도 와. 편바데 내게 줄을 차두고도 와. 가서 그 루이디 코라 동해그라시 인바인자 동해그라시 인바인자 되게 펭귄데 뇌를 용되게도 왔다 되더라도 왔다 이내 다 된대기 개체슈데 류 된대지 용해가 자와 가와 두고도 근데 너무 독소를 두고도 와 너무 독소 자와 가도 단지 말이 볼라 두고도 와 다 된대 인바인자 된대 내가 그 다는 류디 예배 겐게 안에 동해 다 지금 내 나자 나서 용 되게지 아니 나자의 중원도 먼저 매주지에 디 모여에 쳐도 아니 가서도 뭔가 vaccination 시를 뭔가 되게 갑자야다 답시 망고 땅거 열봐 디 맞아봐이나 나자 나기려서 집어지게 열봐 이제 다디 집어지게 열나 된데 나자의 용사게 싸워딜라 먼저 도나 맞이네 대봐이나 다 직다 코라면도 직다 거도 다 싸워디 가서는 근데 사전 예월님의 부부 야는 양도 균형게 돼. 나니 자와 가서는 너무 독소나 두고도 와. 너무 독소는 개념보다 뒤에 자와디 가서는 다 되길라 어디 다지 머리 벌어 두고 다지 머리 벌어 두고 다 근데 이제 되게 다 되게 다 녀모도 송고 될 거나라네 레저 사이나 아니 레저 딱다 맞지 봐이나 아니 디 아니 저부 동에 빠도 매봐 용대 좀 그도 봐 용대기도 봐 와다 디게도 수고여라 다 돼서 아니 딜라다 도나 제고 다 시험고 왔어 시험고 와서 그도 와 어디
Yeah, so it's very obvious that when we have these fears of sickness and of disease and so on, because of this very body that we have, these external manifestations of illness. This is a contaminated aggregate, and so it's kind of inevitable that we're going to be prone to illness, to catching whatever is there. Nothing is better exemplified than this COVID-19, all of why we have to have these lockdowns and so on, because of this fear that because we have these contaminated aggregate of body, we're going to catch this particular virus. And so that if we had a non-contaminated body, there'd be no issue here, no problem. We'd be able to go move around freely without any fear of catching any COVID-19. But here, we are exercising great care unless we go out and so on and catch it. And you can even see in the context of immunization and so on that which is inserted into this contaminated body in order to benefit can sometimes harm as well. This is because the nature of a contaminated aggregate is that even though that which is meant to be of benefit can also harm. So it's very important that we look beyond, say, this normal situation here, or abnormal situation here, and see what the root cause of why we're so prone to these kinds of pandemics and illnesses and so on is, and to really point the finger at the three poisonous attitudes, and that we can rely on to a certain extent the vaccine to help us prevent us from getting this particular COVID-19. But if we were to just be happy with that and rest satisfied with that, it would be kind of like omitting a kind of really in denial about what the root cause of this particular illness or any other illness for that matter is, and that is that we would be ignoring the root cause of the three poisonous minds, at the heart of which is this ignorance of self-grasping, and that by doing so, it's just living in denial like that is just not right. We can't be content with that. But just once we have the vaccine, that we're fine. But here we have to work on what the root cause of these particular illnesses, and to be able to say this is ultimately caused by mental affliction, and that the karma that is created in that way that leads to these kinds of illnesses, like every other negativity or disaster or suffering that befalls us. And so it behoves us to purify. And this is what should again remind us that it's this kind of purification. And because if we don't, we're only bequeathing to ourselves a future of endless suffering.
샤돔 제도 아니 네바디게도 쇼촌도 조사도 아니 자와랑라 디 자와 아니 다지 마리 발 카디 자데 레라도 주고요. 다다 네바 쇼초보 쇼제 디 세베 레디 옹게 사베 레 네바 쇼초보 시부주 요마 이나 아니 셈도 두고요 말에 셈도 마도 바 이나 셈 요모모 생활 조되고 셈 다데네즈 디 세베 레 네바디도 마 자오도 아니 랑게 그 류다 셈라 아니 동네도 용도 저거래 동네 용도 도와라 때는 아니 셈 두엘라 니바슈차 요거래 텔라 때는 아니 디 자와 단지 말이 뭐라네 아니 갑대 잘래 래라도 두고 요래 델라로 가서라 단지 말이 뭐라 갑대 자와라 아니 저거 랑게 다가 저거 룡아 류다 다 룡아 이송고 토네 다가 저거 델라 갑대 자에게 아니 가서다 니바소레 에너지를 줘도 숙청보 요거도디 랑 디과 첨보 사되게 아니 지금 가서다 디과 첨보 요되게 아니 디 아니 가서다 디과 디 아니 가서 다 가서라 다 저기 디 오게 아니 동해 망고 중앙도도 아니 딜라 때네 다가자 셈도엘라 다 류섬의 동해 나서가 중앙되기로 딜라 때네 아니 셈도엘라 뇌되기도 셈도마도도 아니 딜라 때네 다가자 디 자와 다지 마리 발라 뇌들라 니버슈 추도 쪽으로 와 다 디저 레냐바다 마 디바디도 마차도 아니 랑게 소놈데 미 사바 남자 주스 아니 랑게 소놈게 니바 잡슈 첨부 요데 아니 쉐드웰 니바 차 안디 아니 쉐기 기게 소데 다지 마리 바다 랑체제냐 딜라 카데 차레 니바 슈차 요구도 그러 요도가 요구라 호데데 따데데 도와서 좋아 안디다 선제 샬라 펴바자 란 디바 첨부 전에 샬라 펴바 줘야 돼 니바 슈총아 요구로 니바 슈총아 요구로 와 편도 제대로 말봐. 어떤데 다 디바 가자. 아니 가서나 디바 슈청보 요바이나 아니 가서는 딜라테네 아니 녀모슈 니바 슈차 요구도 와. 요데도 아니 딜라테네 다 베나 다는 데네 소가 사와다라 아니 녀소라 이게도나 탑치 강에 매바 차도라 가서 다 미 남주데 라사르와 다 요마르와. 다는 미 남주 인데베 갈래 디바 첨보 속에 아니 가서 다 저기 최 랍치보 뚝뚝 요마레 아니 내가 미 남주 더 살아다 뒤다 녀석 다 남이 녀들 때는 디베트 남이 녀들 때 선다르다 아니 가제도 말와 어때다 어때 저다 근데 인자 디바 다답 제거디 개첨부 차이도 되려도 와
So we really have to concentrate on purification of the three poisonous attitudes, or the karmas indeed, that are accumulated based on these three poisonous attitudes of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And that this is something that can reduce our tendencies to engage in these kind of negativities as well. And it's kind of like to understand that when we are purifying like this, we're more careful around accumulating negativities anew, and that we kind of like allow the mind to be more settled, and that when we have that, we have more control over the mind, and therefore more energy to be able to put into the Dharma itself. And the opposite of this, of course, is that when we're not purifying our negativities, there's less kind of conscientiousness about our activities. This can lead to the mind that is upset by actions motivated by attachment, aversion, and ignorance. And then one accumulates that karma, which is causes pain and upset to both body and mind. That's suffering then, there's no control. And the mind then is kind of like in a state where it can't oppose the massive influence of mental affliction on the mind. And so here we need to be able to harness our positive energy by, first of all, purifying negativity, and that then reducing, the kind of like the how do you say, the influence of great negativity, because we understand that it leads to so much suffering. And the upsets that we have in the mind are reduced. We have therefore more peace and control in the mind, and that leaves us open, that energy to accumulate positive merit. That becomes a great power in its own right for us to be able to engage in spiritual practice. And that means that we are, in engaging in, it's like a beneficial cyclical kind of like system where through purification we end up the energy and power to engage in spiritual practice, that thereafter will concentrate on opposing mental affliction and having again freeing up the energy to actually benefit others. And that's very, very important for us to understand that without that purification, the opposite may be all too apparent for us, that we won't have that capacity to benefit others, and indeed we will engage in harmful negativities towards other sentient beings. That will cause us to be reborn in the lower realms at a point when there we kind of basically lose the game. We are kind of like our ability to oppose negative tendencies is highly compromised because our human intelligence is kind of basically compromised and gone. What has been on our mind streams that hasn't been dealt with, that hasn't been purified, is now ripened into this reality that is a complete disaster for us, where there's really nothing we can do. And so the second of these points is that the rare medicine that can overcome the great fear that is caused, the great fear of this disease that is caused by the three poisonous minds. Verse number 55. And if all people dwelling on this earth can be overcome by just one of these, and if no other medicine to cure them is to be found elsewhere in the universe. So this verse is looking at the disease or the illness that is caused through anger, for example, that it alone has the capacity to throw all the beings in this world into the hell realms, and that they're thrown down into the hell realms and have to experience that reality. But the medicine of the Dharma, the great medicinal Dharma nectar, that won't be found anywhere else other than what the Buddha has taught. And that if we do find it, now that we have found it rather, it's kind of at the time when we really need to strive and make effort at practicing that Dharma. And we can see the reality of it now.
Topchen Gega was a Gega Mango Chigata, Gega Sunjo Yinchi, Gega with Chedo Yinslajanta, Lakja La Sovana, Sobaja Sona Tade, Mama the time. I guess she had only Janjawata, Ranches Kun Lanchen. And the next Janata, but Simjil Rangi, Nevacha Mother Sherman Bujula, and so the Jawa you get to the land, I guess she had to Yakon Petata, Tito Lenya Basachu. And it dilatenata, Niason Mutameva Keg Lesachu. Rota? What the Shanta? Kiago Minki, Chulu Minki, and a jig, and a Mirikana Minki, that Minkari Kemela Madova, dilatene, Naje Shadangi Chen, and a land, but not so much a Sarchen. 아니 랑 예소 겨 맞아 랑나 치나 유다 랑다 저와 유근 경가 예소 주주 주에 에 시야 예소 주주 주에 제제다 반제 예소 못하면 벌게 돼야 무틀이 게 아니 레산 요거 라바잖아 내다다 소에 메다 내든데 내 친구들 소에 메 데카라다 치르와다 녀모도 수가 녀보 다 최군조들이 와다 녀보 다음에 또 배셔라 라소바다 렌데 라소바 음 스웨세 라소바 잡아다 제와 라소바 되게도와 네 매데 최기 되지 되베 송레서 소와다 되베 송레 되베 수다 디나다 되베 나소와 되베 나소와 저 송요다 디나나다 되베 샤자 되베 송레 셴지 셴네 초나 꿀라마다 딜레 아니 셴 샤바지 제가 저도 딱 가봤잖아 니에 되겠지 미니나 제 미니나 가서는 디 아니 시대 다음에 따와게 시대 주족 ben 된데 동네 바자다 잡아 매워서 두게 다음에 따와게 시대 제게 잡아다 닝제 제와 쇠선 되게디 레 셰베게 아니다 다 매지 요 말했어 미니나 다다 소소라 뒷니에 대도 왔어 뺏겨 왔어 거를 왔어 니에 깜들라 다 배주 지구로 다 왔어 셔보죠
And so here pointing out that, when, kind of identifying the mental afflictions as disease, and like when we have a mind which is diseased, for example, by self-cherishing, it's kind of like that which is going to promote anger and so on. So we have this division between self and other. Therefore, we have attachment to self and aversion towards other. And this kind of disease, based on this kind of disease, then we are prompted into negative actions that can be, a personal vendetta against another, or even to the point of nations taking up arms against each other. And that here, whether it's, through pride or envy or avarice, whatever it is, that creating continuous causes for the rebirths in the lower realms. And that whether we're doing so for reputation, in the name of religion, in the name of country, it doesn't really matter. It's all of these, negative karmas that are accumulated, and that here and all of our comrades may be the same way, accumulating negative karmas in the same way, and that continuously creating the karmas based on the three poisonous attitudes, and it's pointing to the fact that the only alternative here is the only antidote to all this is to really take on the Dharma as taught by the Buddha, that the wisdom of selflessness, to adopt the law of cause and effect, and the teachings on patience, the loving kindness and compassion, as the great teachers have said, particularly the Buddha Shakyamuni, pointing out in particular the theory, the view on selflessness, that which can deal with not just the illness of the three poisonous minds, but also eradicate the imprints of that tendencies, the latencies there as well. And that, when we actually have found this wisdom, these teachings, we should really rejoice, really understand how unbelievably fortunate we are. This is really amazing. And that means, we are inspired thereafter, as it says here, to really make an effort in these teachings, to strive to perfect these teachings.
그래서 지다 다 코아토마 매번에 디 코아들 게데 말에 근데 지다 밀류에 뭐불래 요그래 얘네 단단내시 밀류지 레몬이 와서 좋아 단단내시 밀류지 레몬이 와서 좋지 가서나 아니 저기 되게 남제 씨바 또 바샤죠 투베 근데 동아서 되게 또 용수 좀 찬되게 어떤데 지도체 아니 된대지 제네 딱 간제 저기 소소가 딜 때발라 아니 저기 가서 이제도 매바다 대바 요되게 안데 지금 알리지 남네 자치 좀 가서 제도를 맞도 되지 요되고 다 지금 문에다 되네 되도 줘야게 되네 되도 줘야게 딱 가서 지금 가서 튕게 약보지 상태도 다 약보 상화디 랑이 뭐 줘배 돈에 딱 뭐만 줘봐 이나 아니 배도고 말아 봐 가서 가서 소속에 미교부 시부지게 아니 다다 녀마가 몇 땅에 줘라 딱 가서 녀마가 몇 땅서데 이 도숨 인데 수 안데가나 하야샤자 칼라속으로 와 녀마가 잡링 지금 돼서 이네 다 미교부 시부지게 아나 도숨 수에데 도디 문에 세리 임바이네 미교부디게 도디 세리 뭐 하모거나 미교부디 교부를 타두고 말아 봐 다 랑게 되게 받아 뭐쳐고도 오 다 시부지 다리 시부지 중만이와 중샤스 뭐쳐가 돈에 아니 가와다 되게도 예배 돈에 가시 쪼신 거네 아니 다까지 강투도게 다까지 때문에 산재게 때마다 잡아도 고쳐봤어야지 아니 고쳐봤을 때 다 가려운 것은 아주 탐해와래 레니 뭐뭐 사요 뒤에서 옆에 숨들라 때는 응가사베 뒤부터 다답지 아이 개와 싸도 좀 봤지 안치 rin물마도 봐 아니 저기 가서 람게 심도 봤지 왔다 들어서 다도 고갑래도 봐 왔다 들어
So, we have to, the reality of the situation is that in our long sojourn in cyclic existence, we have had a human rebirth many, many times. And that here, we, even though we have, maybe met the teachings of the Shakyamuni Buddha, who has developed and demonstrated the path to complete happiness, we haven't really gone for it. We haven't really been convinced in all those times and sort of like let those lives go by without making the full, living them to their full capacity. And so here, having some sense of aspiration and faith in the teachings, that we really need to recognize just how wonderful these teachings are as a blueprint that can lead us from happiness to happiness continuously. But we have to recognize this for ourselves. We have to realize if we don't, it's no good in our being exposed to these teachings or having access to them. It's something we have to recognize for ourselves, that this is the perfect blueprint to guarantee happiness from lifetime to lifetime. And it's like a very poor person who's completely penniless, and who in the old times used to have to cook whatever they had on a pot over maybe 3 rocks and then light the fire between them, put the pot on top and cook whatever they had, without realizing that one of the rocks was actually gold, a treasure in front of their eyes which they could not realize, and so never got the benefit of it. And so here is something that we have to recognize, and indeed we have to realize to such an extent that it brings forth a sense of absolute delight in us, of recognizing how unbelievably fortunate I am to have met with this blueprint, these teachings. And therefore, I will put my best effort into integrating these teachings into my life. And therefore, I can, as an ordinary person, understand that I need to take this twin approach of purifying all my negativities and accumulating all positive merit in order to be able to really fulfill fulfill my kind of potential as a human being this time around, and to see it as a kind of like a unique and perfect opportunity for me. So let's leave it there for today.
대화대 미지 되었다 때문에 제투버와 왔다 되네 왔다 되지 다들 제발라 또 삼로그 배주도 지고도 그리고 흘려대 삼로그 배주도 전에 삼로그 배주도 전 다가 저 지다 최거리 내가 개치도 sem부 조다니 개치보래 디나네 남배 최 디나네 택바 첨배 최대 삼로그 조다니 개치슈래 다디인데 가린 바이네 아니 가서데 최소 좋아. 디아 택바 첨배 최로 좋도 맞지. 왔다 되네 제 개치보래 또 왔다 되네 다들 왔다
And so it's important then that we really try to, as much as we possibly can, to integrate the Dharma into our life. And so regardless of what length of life we have, be it a short life or a long life, and that we have this constant diet of Dharma in our minds, that we kind of remain relaxed, but we remain focused in our thinking. This is really the most important, to kind of really see that all of the conditions of life are conducive conditions for my being able to integrate the Dharma, and to make that life into a life of Dharma, to make that Dharma the Mahayana Dharma. And this is really what is the essence and most important here.
아니 되네 소소가 무투네 아니 지금 미지도 돌다 담바처럼 아니 소소 삼로 전화 전화 산나 도나 줄람남치 근데 제바이나 택과침이 최다 대화 택과침이 최가 냠내게 튕겨를 좋아데 제토바이나 아니 소소가 나와데 택과침이 최가 튕겨를 좋도와 소소 시조와데 택과침이 최가 튕겨를 좋도와 아니 디제도 아니 소소 딜라테네 아니 소소게 레상고치 사야 사도 사야 아니 레상볼로 쇠답데 딜라테네 개와 치마데 택바집에 최지 제게 튕겨 유게지 개도 다 쳐버렸다 다 쳐버려 거기서나 가서 소소가 졸람남식 같이 가면 택바집에 최 택바집에서 다 자주가 선마께봐 개와 권에 권도 피해게 아니 튕겨를 배주 땅도 아니 가서도 소소가 가서다 답변은 타마 치조와데 아니 자주스바 마게와 개바 권에 권도 포에 튕겨를 배주 땅도 개와 치마데 개와 상볼로 다 쳐서버려 뭐 자고 말이 찌자고 말해 거들이 저 쇠답 쪽으로 와 디제도 아니 소소 지금 배나 수부 탕보시다 매다 수부 제제다 걸 류사바질려는 양조 최사에 류드 사바지 주에고 도대 강해면도 와 그럼 매바 차주고 요 말어 와 매바 차주고 요 말어 그 아니 그 대대게 소소 지금 잠바다 닝제다 자주가 생기 냠랭게 지스메지도 제도 개와치마데 최주에 튕겨 야 딜레 삐다가지 용도로 와 딜레 삐다가지도 그 아니 치마지 강해 요 말이야 딜레 때는 치바 딜레 때는 양 지금 뒤 최주에 튕겨를 배주 땅저도 치와데 아니 가서도 치와데 아니 개와 상벌레게 줄을 줬다 그래. 아니 그 강하면도 와. 강해요 말이야. 그 삼바 고양 버자 밥해 버자. 개치시대 랑게 절람남시 근데 제바나 사나 토나 도나 대나 녀나 근데 제바이나 기부주나 동해주나 근데 제나 디 자주에서 맞아와 개와 권에 권도 배 튕겨다 모아도 몰람제 튕겨를 배주 땅도 강해 봐요 말이야. 가야 쳐봐요 말해. 상해 근데전에 쳐봐요 말해. 나사다 치와 근데전에 쳐봐요 말해. 아니 그 남시나 상계 콤바트에 줄을 둬대기도. 아니 그 개왔다 상보를 내가 다 쳐봐라. 너 바페 보지 기부체. 아니 삼로 땅에도 만화지. 삼로 땅에 너나 뺏어 버렸다. 삼로 땅에 만화지. 아니 삼바 기부 거는 어디서 둬대 기부 쉽지 않아.
So the idea here is to try to really see our life as a life of Dharma, that we can really dedicate and integrate all of what is included in the Dharma into everything about our life to make that a continuously meaningful life. So whatever occurs for us, we are steeped so much in the Mahayana ideal that whatever happens, whether we're sick or we're on the verge of death, that it doesn't matter. We see it all as conducive conditions to engage in the Dharma, and that we are constantly accumulating good karmas, positive merit, and that by doing so we are also guaranteeing a good future existence for ourselves. This is already guaranteed. This is decided for us if we're able to maintain this level of Dharma awareness, and that we are constantly, as we say, developing that whatever level the mind of enlightenment has arisen, may it really thrive and may it increase more and more and more into the future. And if we're really living that ideal, as the prayer says, then we are looking after our future. Our future will be certain for us. And so it's kind of like we don't need to throw a mold in order to guarantee that, or do any other astrological calculations and all to do that. We are kind of like constantly making things better, and that we are kind of like developing that inclination into our natural way of being. And so that no matter what happens, whether we're dead, dying, or very ill, we have our mind set on a better future, and that the future is kind of guaranteed, and that that we keep our mind relaxed and happy, and that at the whether we're using all conditions, when we're at that point of using all conditions, be they suffering conditions or happy conditions, but we're using them to turn our mind towards the Dharma, to maybe to make aspirational prayers for the benefit of others, dedicating whatever virtue there is to the benefit of others. Then at one time this will become automatic for us, and so we kind of really can make our life, whatever we have of it, continuously meaningful.
Yeah, that rangi duna to be on said what rangi to pemba the name change kubasha and the tendo gender padizza laboratory tagi to be the cousin kuzu to your so the tabeka to so the nibeka to shoot so the subeka of the should have Sunday Kubamato, but the chess so the Kawako.
And so then we visualizing the figure of Shakyamuni in the space in front of us, and that we kind of like making the appropriate mandala of lotus sun and moon disk mandala seat on our crown. We make the invocation verse, so glorious and precious Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown, keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. Reciting this thrice. At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves from the space in front towards us. At the end of the second, arriving on our crown, and at the end of the third, remains steadfast there until we attain the state of enlightenment. This brings forth a feeling of great joy and rejoicing that we have such a guarantor for our future. And then we make the offering of mandala and the seven-limbed practice.
And then subject of the Kasodata, Yamaji, social concept, Mani Batakaranga Semsha, and then Lot Tagara, then Kasakasam gave a lot Tagara, and the Kasoda Tandate, what the Kasoda Nimeki watch that, the Metal, Nimeki watch 공부시 배매죠. 아니 되네 subject 탐정 산재 공부도 토모 때 누구니도 토마치기 서서 삼었다. 아니 되게 가서도 로티 로데 그저도 로티 아니 다외 경과실 교체는 님에다가 녀소 서서 담았지만 다외때 지금부터 주서서 안되는 반대처럼 남아는 뭐 다 인가 배매도 가르쳐 고수도 우리들 수도 잡을 집에 남았더니 뭐 집어는 뭐 저는 왜 그러시 뭐 저는 담배 가서 배 입에 가서 수면 때도 산재 공부 마도 저 가고 아니 되네 저기 니들 다 담아담 제도 마주나 남빈이 내자의 신내 소소서 엔디 간들 도저히 가면 생각봐 체가지 갖게 되는 거도 just 좀 소치 어떻게 쉬어야 되는지 안디 타고도 되베청아 다에도 오문은 다에도 오문은 되베청아 인데스 예고도 거되겠지 되네 자매야게 아니 송나 오마라바자 나티디디디디디디디디슨 나테르스 숨고티겠지 되네 된den가 오마 예다마 해도도다가 마샤만에 소데는가 숨고도 어디 유소상이 니고 유소 라마 샤자스게 쇼유서 데르 라마 샤자스게 쿠존토레 웨세트는 랑이 지고네 간데가 발로 웨세트네 아니 제 랑게다 유순다 랑게다 토마메바는 사베 디바다 디바 소주와 마지막으로 메사바 준정마 저정가 낙선에서 로달라서 미게 주분부터 계획다 사실 하나마도 와는 제가 하나마도 와는 되게 계획이 니가 근데 줘봐 있는 배 다가 줘서 삼사지 세대서 말이야 통만 못 사봐 되봐 안 대자 말에 아니 소다가 도봐 자주 선배 라바 상하게 담지다 개왔다 니가 근데 저 싸요바네 뭐 장치 다바지 중수 삼사지 어디로 공부시 아니 되네 아니 저거 랑게 가소려 아니 최주배 계제 랑 수부 대담에베다 르르가 나자 요바인데 sem나 동네 요바인데다 가리 요바인데다 탐제 쉬워쳐서 삼삼 난 다가네 중심 그 많이 봤는데 게 나자 요해들 요번 되게 되게 쉬워져 다가네 실내 아니 사람과 똑같게 말하는 게자롱 틸레 돼서 비다보 용고 개체보이고 되게 남자 친구이나 되게 교회되게 파다는 수소 상사지 아니 학교도 뉴도 산재 공부라 타면 나시 개 지주이면서 타면 나시 교회 타다 가나다자 따바란 잡아시 차도 오다 야고 쉬우 중소 선을 가고
So then we contemplate on establishing the lotus sun and moon disk mandala seat as our own heart center, and to reflecting on renunciation to begin with, and really seeing how from this definite emergence from cyclic existence arises the lotus seat mandala, and then through reflecting on the sentient beings, looking for any truly established self or objective of the existing self, and not finding it. And that very point of the mere absence of the object of a negation arises from that mind itself arises the sun disk mandala. And then this desire to really attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, bringing forth the moon disk mandala seed. And then again, we make the invocation verse, "O glorious and precious Guru, come take the lotus and moon seed placed here at my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind." And that, and then again at the end of the first recitation, that the figure begins the journey down from the crown chakra down through the central channel. At the end of the second, arrives at the prepared seat, and at the end of the third, we have the certainty that they will remain until we attain the state of enlightenment. Again, there's this brief moment of rejoicing, of really thinking this is something wonderful, and then the petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at the very tips by 5-pronged white vajra, and that then the lotus package is surrounded by the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha going in clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri Amarapatsana Didi in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination again in a clockwise direction. And then from within, light rays begin to emanate, countless powerful light rays begin to emanate from the figure of the Buddha within, permeating through the petals, through indeed every atom of my body, from the crown down through the soles of the feet, purifying all negativities and obscurations that I've accumulated since beginning this time, particularly associated with the 10 non-virtues of those body-related non-virtues of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, of those speech-related negativities of lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip, and of the mentally related negativities of malicious intent, covetousness, and wrong view. And then also we are purifying all the naturally occurring negativities, as well as those prescribed by the Buddha. Then we are seeing the purification of all infractions of vows, be they the breaking of the Pratimoksha vows, the contravening the Bodhisattva vows, and the breaking of our pledges in the Tantric collection of vows, that these are all completely purified, that we are looking then at purifying all obstacles to our engaging in Dharma practice, such as illness and ill health or any other impediment that we may have. They are completely eradicated. Any imbalances in the 4 elements, any imbalances and improprieties in the winds, channels, and drops that will compromise our passage along the paths and grounds to enlightenment. And in particular, we deal with ordinary appearance, that which really slows down our capacity to attain enlightenment quickly. That this is completely eradicated and replaced by pure perception.
아니 가서도 라마샤자 생게 아니 가서도 다 good leje 지금 전에 아니 랑기 루이데 라마샤자 생게 꿀을 주소서 소소 시도 트레 셈데 아니 라마샤자 생게 가서 셈데 니레자 라마샤자 생게 투데 leje 지금 전에 소소 쓴데 라마샤자 생게 투를 주소서 랑기 룽아 예소도 라마샤자 생게 소도 뭐 예매 주소 서서 원데 공부샤 아니 되네 다다데 가서 라기 네디야 네기 네다 네기 교 탐제 제네 아니 라마샤자스게 다베시도 줄수 선서원들 고마샤.
And then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the principle or the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And through the combination of my own more subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is now transformed into the enlightened mind of the Buddha. And I see my own body, speech, and mind as indivisible now from the body, speech, and mind of an enlightened being. I rejoice here that this is wonderful. And that the place that I am in also is kind of purified of all fault and transformed into the enlightened mansion or abode of a Buddha.
다라 라마샤자스네 구소도도 뭐 예배 주어디 두갈래 아니 왜서 빠도 매버 트레네 아니 감성제 선제 탐제라 포와서 마사와 매발로 포와라 때네 대다 탐제게네 다 디바데 저 바자데 저 바자네 아니 라마샤자스네 구소도도 뭐 예배 주소서 네 대다 탐제제 내게 교 탐제 다네 다베시도 주소다 다 가져저 감성 코와스인데 민상에 매봤다 매바 차수서도 봤다 동수 삼사 어떻게 다들 그 답에 가서 닦아져 가서도 늦으니까 닦아져 그 주그 subject가 돼 아니 라마샤자세 고스동 거 이메죠 아니 내디가 돼 답에서도 주로보다 감성 코어가 다 앱스로다 동 내가 차수서 왔다 가고 왔다 가고 왔다들이 저 감수서 닦아져 subject 단자 산년 고마 거봐 대고의 소소기 개화가를 두봐 다 두빈 소소도 제가 유대는 맞고 똑바로 판다 잡지 뭐지 디 아니 디 대화체 대외 동반체 대돈 있으면 이식계수 스스 공부하죠.
And then seeing myself as a fully enlightened being and divisible from an enlightened being in body, speech, and mind, I send out countless rays of light from the heart center going out into all the realms of existence. And upon touching all sentient beings, they are purified of all negativity and spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings. And likewise, the places in which they are purified of all fault and transformed into pure realms of enlightened beings. This is something I can completely rejoice in. Then I contemplate how all sentient beings and the virtue that has led them to this state of enlightenment, and myself as the agent of that virtue, completely empty of all inherent existence, and are merely imputed by thought. This brings forth a sense of bliss in the mind that combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
시 가리 중화 이마이나 다 깽에 근데 중화이나 깽사모 근데 중화 대다 답자 아니 디교도 자주 그 습다 돈이 또 싫어 교육 아니 튕겨를 교와서 어떤 거 같지.
And then, of course, this is we're operating at the level of aspiration and imagination here. We can't simply bring this about as easily as that. But I can do one thing, that in order to bring this about, I can really dedicate sincerely and dedicate to that whatever the situation is, whether it is a good situation or a bad situation for me, one of suffering or illness or even at the point of death, that I will see all of these situations as an opportunity to lay down the causes for the mind of enlightenment itself and the developing of wisdom. And I make this sincere dedication. You are Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence. I'm Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Sankapa and crown, jewel of the sages of the land of snows, your Sankapa, at your feet, and make requests.
Lasso touch it, no touch it.